Perhaps one of the greatest concepts introduced to the world is that of democracy.
Democracy, stemming from the Greek word demos, is defined as a system of government in which power is vested in the people.
Different forms of democracy exist, and even though they all differ, one thing stands true. It's all about the people.
And so there is still a question that remains. A question asked by those who are not in democracy and those who struggle to understand, why is democracy the best?
Is that a leading question? Yes. Fallacious? Maybe. Here are 10 reasons why democracy is the best.
Democracy, being a form of government for the people, distributes power to every citizen. This provides exposure to government to everyone and encourages citizens to actively partake in various political procedures. However, regardless of education and interest level, no single person can know everything about every issue facing the country. All voters vote with a certain level of ignorance about the issues. But by forcing candidates to seek public approval, they are forced to attempt to educate the voters and give them the information they need to make an informed choice, that way producing a more politically literate population. Removing the right to vote also removes the incentive to inform the politic about how politics work, as well as the incentive to become informed, creating an even more ignorant society.
Democracy leaves space for equal and healthy competition. Unlike other types of government that have arbitrary or outdated guidelines to have a say in government, democracy is fair and open to all. From the average Joe to a fancy Mo, your say in government is the same.
Law in a democratic state is also one of the major contributors to the greatness of democracy. Unlike other states that favor those in power, a democratic legal system leaves all equal and at the hands of the law.
Democracy, as much as it is understood, is the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. If democracy is executed correctly, then it provides a supported landscape of human rights. The citizens would have the rights to exercise freedom of speech concerning the needs and well-being of the citizens in economy, education, health, living areas, and much more.
Democracy is as much about having checks and balances for executive purposes and having clear, public decisions as it is about elections and the citizens ready to create changes in the government. One of the greatest aspects of a democratic government is that the citizens are able to see if the executive is doing things that are detrimental to the country's actions, and if they are wrong or illegal, will not hesitate to bring actions to a halt.
Democratic governments always have freer people than other governments. They obviously have the right to vote for their government and thus have a right to deciding the policy of their nation and what their nation should be like. They have more freedom of speech and expression than in other states. In particular, they are free to criticize their own government.
No other form of government can respond to the needs of the masses better than democracy. Non-democratic governments also respond to people, but in a much more arbitrary way that may have ulterior motives for the government in question.
Though in a democracy, people take their own decisions by electing their own representatives, there is no guarantee that decisions taken by the general public at the time of elections prove to be right for the years to come. Sometimes, people may later realize that they made a wrong choice. The best part of democracy is that such mistakes cannot stay hidden for long, and there is room for correction. When the representatives we elect turn out to be corrupt or insensitive towards public sentiments, we can always vote for better alternatives in the next general elections. If the rulers do not change their decisions, we can change them. This is not possible in any other form of government.
The most developed and richest countries are all democracies. Freedom brings an increasingly necessary economic growth once the country has moved to being mostly dependent upon services rather than manufacturing or natural resource exploitation. Once this occurs, then creativity becomes important, and the freedoms associated with democracy are needed to foster this creativity that is needed for industries such as information technology, creative arts, research, and development to not only improve economic growth, but the general state of the nation.
Democracy also fosters equal representation of both majority and minority interest. unlike in some political dispensations where only a certain gender or household can be found in government, where people like me and you may be crucified for dreaming to become head of state. Democracy gives all, including the minority, a voice.